Good afternoon and welcome. We are bringing you commentary of Newcastle United versus Fulham today in the Premier League. I'm your alternative commentator, Joe Lever, and you're listening to the Commentary Hub, the home of alternative commentary. We've got the lineups coming for you in a moment, but this is two teams way on the up this year in the Premier League, both having seasons way beyond expectations. And Newcastle United challenging for Champions League honours, and Fulham with their own European ambitions as well, freshly promoted from the Championships. Let's go through the teams for you. In goal for Newcastle United, remains unchanged. He's played every minute this season. Nick Pope, number 2, Kieran Trippier at right back, Sven Botman and Fabian Schär, the centre-backs for Newcastle United. Dan Burn at left back, and it's a three-man midfield with Bruno Guimaraes, Sean Longstaff and Joe Willock. Completing a front three today, Miguel Almiron, Callum Wilson and Joe Linton. Big call by Eddie Howe to put him in after his drink driving conviction earlier on this week. For Fulham, they make a couple of changes from the win over their West London rivals Chelsea. Bernd Leno stays in goal. Kenny Tete keeps his place in the team, but coming into the back four is Issa Diop for Tosin Adarabioyo. Tim Ream holds his place at centre-back. Anthony Robinson at left-back is suspended today. In comes Layvin Kurzawa on loan from Paris Saint-Germain. In midfield, it's Harrison Reed, João Palhinha, the Portuguese international. Willian, along with Bobby De Cordova-Reid on the wings. Andres Pereira in the number 10 role. And leading the line for Fulham today, top scorer for them, Alexander Mitrovic, playing against his former employers as well. Have a little look now as well for you for the fourth officials today. We know we have Mike Dean on VAR duty back at Stockley Park. And refereeing today will be Robert Jones, fourth officials as well, with Graham Scott, and assistant referees Lee Betts and Ian Hussin. It's an absolutely packed St James's Park. The flags are flying today. And what a season they're having. They're 25 points better off this time around this season at this point than last year. A brilliant turnaround by Eddie Howe in his 51st game in charge, leading Newcastle United. You can see the players now having a little bit of hydration before they go on. We would have thought they would have done that prior to coming out of the tunnel. Bruno Guimaraes, the midfield linchpin for Newcastle United, linked with Real Madrid and some other big European clubs in this transfer window and previous one gone. But he seems to be really bought in to the Newcastle project with the new Saudi Arabian ownership. And Alexander Mitrovic there. He would love a goal today, wouldn't he? 11 goals this season so far in just 15 Premier League games. Suspended though for the victory over Chelsea. They didn't need him, Fulham. They looked very good against Graham Potter's side at Craven Cottage. And one man that you'd actually think be unfortunate not to make the starting 11 was Carlos Vinicius. He is on the bench today for Fulham. I'll go through the subs for you now. Their goalkeeper, in fact, of course, we'll start with Newcastle United. Martin Dubravka, back from his short-term loan spell at Manchester United. Jamal Lascelles, Alan St. Maximan, struggled for fitness this year, but such a key part of Newcastle's attack. Matt Ritchie, Jamal Lewis. Alexander Isak, Newcastle's club record signing, is fit to make the bench. He has 2 goals in 3 Premier League games for Newcastle, but has been unfit for a while now, but has made a comeback for Newcastle in the cup games recently, and he's looking for some match sharpness. Completing the bench for Newcastle, Javier Manquillo, the former Liverpool fullback, Chris Wood and Jacob Murphy. And now over to Fulham's bench, Marek Rodak, the goalkeeper, Tosin Adarabioyo, who played so well against Chelsea in the week, Harry Wilson, the Welsh winger, Tom Kearney, Manut Solomon, the Israeli international, Nathaniel Chalobah, Daniel James, Carlos Vinicius, who scored that wonderful header against Chelsea in midweek. As I said, he'll feel unfortunate to be left out, but understanding with Mitrovic coming in. And youngster Luke Harris completes the bench for Fulham. Action's about to get underway. Fulham are kicking from left to right towards the Gallowgate end in the first half, with Newcastle kicking right to left, and they'll be kicking towards the Leases stand. Already some early action. Dan Burn under pressure from Willian, and he clears for a Fulham throw deep in the Newcastle half. Looks like a sunny day on Tyneside today. January chill in the air, no doubt. Kenny Tete down the wing to Alexander Mitrovic. He has an early wrestle with Dan Burn, and Dan Burn wins a throw. In fact, no, it's a Fulham throw. Yeah, long throw distance here to put into the box. But he opts for the short one, Kenny Tete. Decent fullback, signing this season for Fulham. And Newcastle turn it over for their own throw, which will be taken by Dan Burn. Plays it inside to Bruno Guimaraes. It's a bit scrappy early on, of course, what you expect in the first minutes. Two teams really have had such unbelievable seasons when you think about it, particularly for Fulham, riding high in 6th, beating Chelsea last time out, only their second win in 44 years against Chelsea. Proves how tough it is to beat their rivals, always been in their shadow. I know Fulham fans wouldn't enjoy that. It has been the case. It was a brilliant win against Chelsea in midweek, which propelled them up to 6th in the league. Newcastle, meanwhile, are 4th in the table, dropped down from 3rd after Manchester United win in the Manchester derby yesterday. Early touch for Nick Pope now. He's been such a solid player for Newcastle this year. I think record number of clean sheets. In fact, 11 goals conceded Newcastle. Definitely the best defence in the Premier League this year. And 10 clean sheets for Nick Pope in those 18 games. Absolutely incredible. Which makes you think, again, about his place in the England setup long term. Kieran Trippier on the ball now for Newcastle. Sean Longstaff plays it back to Trippier. Again, Trippier, what an instrumental signing. He's been arrived just a year ago. What a year it's been for him up at Newcastle. And he tosses it forward now. Joe Willock, flick on from Joe Linton. Willock gets his head up and has a shot, and it's just wide. An early sighter for Joe Willock, who, again, arrived at Newcastle from Arsenal, in fact. There's question marks around that signing at the time he arrived, but he's certainly been a key man, particularly under Eddie Howe. And his curling effort just from the edge of the box there. Good few yards wide. That won't trouble Bernd Leno, the former Arsenal goalkeeper. Fulham have got it underway quickly. Kenny Tete up the field, and early pressure from Longstaff to win it back, but Fulham have retained it well, and it's João Palhinha out wide to Lerwin Kazawa, who's only making his 6th Premier League appearance for Fulham. The left back would have hoped for more game time, having arrived from the French champions Paris Saint-Germain on loan, but Matt Targett's been keeping out the team. Sven Botman, bit of defending there, knocks it out for a Fulham throw. Harrison Reed there in the midfield. Fulham looking for the ball. Kenny Tete holding on to it, a little bit long there. Brings it to Mitrovic, who passes it straight out for a Newcastle throw. And Callum Wilson scrambles it, but it's very bitty early on in that midfield, and Palhinha retains it for Fulham. Tim Ream gets it wide to Issa Diop. Diop takes it back, and Fulham keen to keep a bit of possession early on at St James's Park to quiet down the home crowd. Lots of football happening today in the Premier League, of course, as well. The North London derby later on this evening, 4:30. Will Arsenal further strengthen their lead at the top of the Premier League on the weekend? Had been for them for their challenges with defeats for Liverpool and Manchester City. Newcastle got in possession deep in the Fulham half, and Joe Linton, big call by Eddie Howe to pick him this week after his drink driving issues, but he stuck with the man that's been so reliable for him on the pitch. Bruno Guimaraes on the edge of the Fulham box looks to create something, and he rolls it inside, and it's skied over. And it's Sean Longstaff breaking through there, and he had a chance. I think it might be a Newcastle corner. Brilliant tackle by Issa Diop. Great creativity from Bruno Guimaraes. What a brilliant midfielder he is. Signing from Lyon, slips it inside to Sean Longstaff. He has an opportunity, and I think it would have been on target if it wasn't for a brilliant tackle from Issa Diop, West Ham centre half on loan. It's a Newcastle corner. Joe Linton's looking to swing it in, but he's played it short to Miguel Almiron, a man absolutely on fire for Newcastle this season. Guimaraes out to Trippier. He beats a man. He's in an edge box. He looked to curl one in. The cross is cleared by Tim Ream. Back to Trippier, who lofts it up. It's there to be one, and I think there's an offside there. Yes, I think Callum Wilson just straight offside. It would be a Fulham free kick just on the edge of their box. 5 minutes played here at St James's Park, as we bring you alternative commentary on the Commentary Hub. The home of alternative commentary, of course. I'm sure there'll be action later on from the North London derby, which you can find on our YouTube channels. Kenny Tete. Willian, who scored against his former employers Chelsea, reluctant to celebrate in the week. Deflected effort that put Fulham 1-0 up. See him do a rather apologetic celebration despite playing at Craven Cottage, although he did have 7 wonderful years at Stamford Bridge and won pretty much everything there is to win with them. Fulham have looked absolutely superb under Marco Silva. That was highlighted in their 2-1 win over Chelsea. They'll be looking to get something from this game. A lot of people have said going into it, Newcastle looked far too strong. See, they lost in the FA Cup, which upset a few fans rather surprisingly, considering the season they have had under Eddie Howe, the transformation in the last 13 or 14 months. But they responded well with a League Cup win, of course, over Leicester City in the week at St James's Park. Dan Burn and Joe Linton with the goals in that one. Newcastle still got trophy ambitions in the Cup, but of course it's the league where they're looking to break into the top 4. I think a lot of people thought they'd roll over Fulham in fine fashion. Of course, the game's only 7 minutes young. Fulham have been superb this year, and it should be a really good game. Not a lot going on at the moment. Bernd Leno has the ball, the Fulham goalkeeper. It's a bit bitty again in the midfield, a little break in play. Oh, pressure for Miguel Almiron. Looked to have won a Fulham corner, but it's been given as a goal kick. Tim Ream put under pressure. The United States international started his career in England with Bolton Wanderers and had a couple of interesting spells, a couple of relegations, and having such a fine renaissance now at 35. Leading Fulham in the Premier League and pushing for Europa League football, possibly more. It's a free kick to Fulham. Deep in Newcastle, possibly a dangerous position. A little foul there. Fabian Schellner, Kieran Trippier leading into Bobby De Cordova-Reid. Not a lot in that, to be honest. I think Fulham could see themselves as fortunate to win a free kick there. They'll look to capitalise. Mateus Pereira, what a season he's had, or Andreas Pereira, sorry, should I say. On loan from Manchester United, the Brazilian. He's going to look to swing it in for Fulham. We've got a few man up here. Harrison Reed's walked away from the free kick. It's Pereira to deliver. He whips it deep into the box. It's cleared by Dan Burn. Well cleared. And Fulham is scrapping on the edge of the box. It's broke to Issa Diop, who plays it across. And some more good defending there from Dan Burn. And the offside flag goes up. Yeah, whipped in from the far side from Andreas Pereira. Looked to cause a bit of trouble. Well defended by Newcastle. Sven Botman now on the ball. What a signing he's been from Lille. Walk in and become part of the best Premier League defence so far this season, of course, alongside Fabian Schär. Partnership, even Eddie Howe, I'm sure, exceeded his expectations. 51 games in charge today for the former Bournemouth man. Does go quick. Feels like only yesterday he was appointed. Kieran Trippier has a throw for Newcastle, just inside the Fulham half on the far side by the east stand. He finds Joe Linton. Game waiting to come to life here. Oh, Trippier's giving it away to William. And it's 3 versus 2 here briefly. William finds Andreas Pereira down by the far side. He looks up, but he's got Newcastle defenders around him. Finds Bobby De Cordova-Reid. Pereira whips the ball into the box. It's found Alexander Mitrovic. Can he turn? Great defending. It's broke to Kenny Tete and blazes over into the Gallowgates. And Fulham having the best of the early sort of exchanges here. 10 minutes on the clock. at St James's Park, as we see a replay. It was into Mitrovic. He looked to turn, did get his shot off, but it was blocked by Botman. And Tete blazes over with his weaker foot. Always, when you think the right back taking a shot with their left foot or the vice versa, you do tend to look away. No offence to Kenny Tete, I'm sure he hasn't scored many of those in his career. Nick Pope upfield, doesn't play it short this time. But it's only found Andreas Pereira, Fulham's playmaker. And Sven Botman has the ball along the back four. Back to Fabian Schär. Newcastle really taking their time to build up today. With the position they're in, of course, no one wants to drop any points, but they've built themselves into a really good place this year. They can afford to take their time. Bruno Gomes gets a little nibble from Harrison Reed. He wants the free kick, but referee plays on. Robert Jones in the middle today. Looking to keep an early flow to the game. Schär plays it long, and he finds Callum Wilson over the top in space. He doesn't have much support. Fulham catch up with him. He breaks into the box, and it's deflected over into Lalise's stand. It'll be a corner to Newcastle United. That's got the St James's Park crowd a little bit more excited. A slower start by their standards. And see a few Newcastle's big men making their way into the area. Bruno Gomes, a hero's welcome over in the corner. Brazilian playmaker, absolutely loved up at Newcastle. You can see why as well. From the far side, he's looking to whip it in, but he goes short to Miguel Almiron. Play it back to Trippier. What a brilliant ball in that is, and it's cleared by the Fulham defence. Willock plays it out wide, but no joy, and Fulham get it clear. But in fact, it's a free kick. Joe Linton, a bit too physical there with the Fulham fullback, Kenny Tete. He's clearly unhappy with that. Marco Silva, the Fulham manager, delivering some instruction there to Kenny Tete. Wasn't happy with something. He's had an interesting spell in English football as Marco Silva. Obviously, the rather infamous tale with Watford and wanting to leave and heading to Everton, where it was obviously a very poor spell for him there. And as we're seeing now with the struggles Everton got with being down near the bottom of the Premier League, not many managers have turned their fortunes around, including the current manager, Frank Lampard. It's a difficult place, but he's found his place, Marco Silva, at Fulham, bringing them up last year in some style from the Championship, but they can break here now. Harrison Reed looks for Alexander Mitrovic, who was offside, but he leaves it for Bobby Decordova-Reid. Very clever play by Mitrovic. Decordova-Reid into the box, and it's cleared by Fabian Schär. Like the menacing from Fulham for a moment there. Tim Ream gathers it on the halfway line as they look to pen Newcastle back into their own half. Bobby Decordova-Reid, live wire on the wing, who's really developed for Fulham. He's been a fine player this season, having been at Cardiff previously in the Championship. Miguel Almiron leaves the throw to Kieran Trippier. I'm sure I won't be saying that for the last time today, the fullback. Bruno Gomes. Again, sloppy there from midfielder. Fabian Schär gathers for Newcastle, and he thumps it hard and up the field, but Tim Ream gathers and goes all the way back to Bernd Leno in goal. And Leno plays it long up to Dan Burn, who can only find the Fulham midfielder, but it's gone back to Sven Botman, who gathers. Joe Linton, it's won back by Fulham. Harrison Reed into Issa Diop, and Reed gets it back again. Such a busy midfielder, Harrison Reed. He's played it over the top here, with a suspicion of a tug back there on Andreas Pereira, but the referee plays on. Willian crosses it in. Can only find the Newcastle defender. And Kazawa, great tackle there. So the left back, I think he would have thought that he would have been more involved for Fulham this season. That's not been the case. Just the 5 appearances for Kazawa. You'd think he'd be on some wages at Paris Saint-Germain, of course. Sorry, Anthony Robinson, a left back, the USA international, making 17 appearances in the Premier League for Fulham this year. Was, of course, a key linchpin of their back four in the Championship. Willian now gets the ball for Fulham. And it looks to me, yes, he's played that off Bruno Guimaraes, and it will be a Fulham corner. 15 minutes on the clock at St James's Park. It was busy play again. Willian looking fantastic. A lot of people wrote him off after his spell at Arsenal when he left Chelsea. He went back to Brazil and joined Fulham this year. They had injury issues at the start of the season, and he really has been brilliant for Marco Silva's team. A bit of experience, keeping hold of the ball in areas that you need to buy a bit of time. It's Andres Pereira from the right-hand side is to whip it in. There's just a delay in play here. Here he goes now, whips it in, and it's cleared by Joe Linton. Big figure, likes to get himself in and out the box. It's tossed back in, but no action again. It's Issa Diop, and it's just ping-balling around at the moment with little effect, and Fulham gather. But the referee has spotted an infringement there by Alexander Mitrovic, the former Newcastle man, now leading the line for Fulham. Looks particularly unhappy with the referee, Robert Jones, there. He gets a bit of a bad boy rep, doesn't he, sometimes, Mitrovic, but there's a lot more to his game than that. Newcastle take the free kick and play it along the back four. It's Sven Botman at the moment, the tall figure from... He's always found Kieran Trippier out wide. Plays it back, it's over the top, but no one's there. And Bernd Leno, the Fulham goalkeeper, will gather that. It's been a bit of a tepid start by Newcastle so far, normally a lot more energetic, particularly at home. And, ooh, close call there from Tim Ream along the Fulham back four. It's played upfield. Again, tossed up in the air, and it's 50-50s all over the pitch at the moment. But Pereira gets the ball and plays it out wide on the right-hand side to Willian. Willian gets his head up, crosses it in, but only finds the Newcastle defender. And Dan Burn looks to clear, but he wins a goal kick for Fulham. All bad news here for Newcastle. Brazilian midfielder Bruno Guimaraes looks to be injured, and he's signalling to the sidelines. This isn't good. He's down by the edge of the box. He's deep in by the edge of the Fulham box, in fact, and Bernd Leno, the Fulham goalkeeper, is going over to check if he's okay. Let's look at the tackle again. Tim Ream from the studs catch Bruno Guimaraes there. Looks like a sore one, but doesn't look like it's an innocuous one where he's pulled a muscle or done a knee ligament injury or something like that, which obviously tend to be a lot more serious. Looks like it could be a sore one, as he gets treatment now by the Newcastle dugout. Manager Eddie Howe there talking to Joe Willock, young English midfielder. Bruno Guimaraes looks to be still in some discomfort there. Running around a little bit. It seems to be that the shin, top of the foot area is being treated. The referee's talking to him, Robert Jones. I think he looks like he'll make a recovery, although he's still in some pain. I don't think this is going to be one that will concern the Newcastle fans. Bruno will carry on. It's interesting hearing him referred to as Bruno. I think it's split in the commentary world if you prefer to do Guimaraes. Understand why they'd opt for Bruno if not. He's kicking into a light jog now, walking off gingerly on the break in play. I'll keep you up to date now with the game over at Stamford Bridge as well. Chelsea down in mid-table in the Premier League. Graham Potter, a lot to work to do there. Looks like they're on the verge of completing the signing of Ukrainian winger Mykhailo Mudryk from Shakhtar Donetsk in a rather crazy move of £100 million plus add-ons. What looks to be, from various sources, almost all sources, with Chelsea also confirming that they're in talks on their social media. A rather unusual move. Anyway, we get back to the game here at St James's Park. Bringing you alternative commentary today here on the Commentary Hub, with all the action happening at St James's Park. Sven Botman plays it to Dan Burn, and there's not a lot of action at the moment to bring you. It's a cagey opening here against two informed teams in the Premier League. Well, Bruno Guimaraes is hobbling really bad. He's on the ball here for Newcastle United, but he's walking incredibly gingerly. It's actually quite noticeable now, and I wonder how long he's going to have left in this game. I'll keep an eye on him, but in the meantime, Dan Burn has it at left back, close to the dugout. You can only find Sven Botman 10 yards back behind him. But Newcastle keep the ball, spreads it out to his partner Fabian Schär in defence. Miguel Almiron drops deep. What a season Miguel Almiron is having, the Paraguayan. And Kieran Trippier now, far side, whips the ball in. Callum Wilson gets a shot off and it's blocked by Issa Diop. It's squirming out wide and William will get there first to prevent it going behind for a corner. And he plays it off of Joe Willock for a Fulham throw, deep down by the corner flag. But a half chance here for Newcastle. Trippier whips it back and it's a strike by Callum Wilson, but Issa Diop's right in front of him and that's a block. Shouldn't be too much difficulty. Tete takes the throw. But Fulham give it away and Newcastle have it back, and it's Almiron inside on the right-hand side, breaking down, trying to cut back on his left foot, just on the edge of the box. Trippier plays it inside, but can only find the central defender, Tim Ream, for Fulham. But he gives it away to Bruno Guimaraes, who looks to have shaken off the knock that troubled him earlier on. Joe Linton finds Dan Burn. Dan Burn out to Joe Willock. Willock now finds Guimaraes, and Brazilian goes back again to Dan Burn. Centre-back turned left-back for Newcastle. Guimaraes squares it to Sean Longstaff. It's been another ever-present in that successful midfield for Newcastle this season. And Newcastle just starting to mix it out about. Some of the passing looks to be a little bit zippier, but as I say, that commentator's curse, they give it away. Kieran Trippier then wins it back for Newcastle. Ball turning over almost every few seconds here. Sven Botman looks to slow it down. He tosses it wide and long and finds Trippier with a fantastic long ball. Miguel Almiron. Almiron gets his head up. Can only find Guimaraes. Trippier in space now on the right-hand side. Crosses it in. Up goes Callum Wilson. But it's straight at Bernd Leno. Best chance for Newcastle, albeit a difficult header. Good cross by Trippier, who found himself in space probably for the first time this game, inside the 23rd minute. And it's a good header by Callum Wilson, who just couldn't direct it. I think either side of Bernd Leno would have given him some trouble. And the goal kick goes long. It's returned. Tim Ream gathers for Fulham. Kazawa, the left back, plays it wide to Bobby Decordova-Reid, playing on the left-hand side today for Fulham. Finds Andreas Pereira. He plays it back to Kazawa and Tim Ream gathers. Ooh, Joe Willock, and a little scramble there with Kenny Tete. Goes all the way back to Bernd Leno. Issa Diop there, defender for Fulham, on a permanent deal now with the Cottagers. I believe it was a loan spell previously. Tower in centre half. Played every level for France. At youth level, yet to make a senior cap. And you'd think that might be a little bit unlikely now. Possibly not, with the dearth of talent that France have at centre-back. But it's a key part of West Ham's defence for 4 seasons before making the switch to West London. Him and Tosin Adarabioyo have been fighting for that place in the team next to Tim Ream, who's been the everstay in the team for Marco Silva. Just breaking play at the moment. Newcastle have a free kick. It's on the halfway line on the right-hand side. Trippier tosses it forward, and it's again scrambled, not too much, and Fulham look to break. Harrison Reed gets his head up, the Fulham number 6. It's well tackled by Joe Linton. Of course, had a tough week. Eddie Howe's backed his man, despite the controversies this week involving him. Kenny Tete now with the Fulham throw. Inside the Newcastle half. He goes long to Alexander Mitrovic, who's had little so far, despite Fulham's right first 10 minutes. They play so deep, Newcastle, along the back 4. You've got Schär and Botman both sat inside the 18-yard line. They have got the ball, trying to come forward now with Longstaff. brother Matty Longstaff on loan at Colchester United this year in League Two. Sadly, had an injury recently after trying to get some minutes down there. Has Premier League appearances as well for Newcastle. The other Longstaff brother. Many said that he may have been the brighter one, but certainly the bigger brother Sean is living up to all expectations at the moment. Ball's retained by Shea, and he plays it back all the way to Nick Pope, who plays it long. Pope with little to do today. Suffolk-born Pope from Surrey. With a Bury Town in the non-league. Nick Pope, what a journey he's had in his football career, of course. His breakout spell at Burnley, plenty of other jobs before then. Longstaff, out to Trippier. Trippier whips it in first time. It's well defended by Lervin Kazawa. And Bobby De Cordova-Reid can clear for Fulham, but is swept away by Shea, who hooks it back to Bernd Leno. Sorry, apologies. Nick Pope, of course, the Newcastle goalkeeper. And Newcastle retain possession with Willock. Willock up to Callum Wilson. Wilson, Longstaff. Longstaff to Almiron. Almiron gets his head up, wants to cut in on that left foot. Can't quite. It's in the Fulham penalty area. Almiron plays it out to Trippier on the right-hand side, looking to whip it in. Back to Longstaff, who does whip it in, but that looks to be deflected. But Newcastle are calling for a handball. I'm sure VAR will look at it. It's Mike Dean today at Stockley Park. But Bruno Guimaraes, in fact, who whipped in the cross, doesn't look too interested himself. And is that in an unnatural position? Hard to say. By his side, really, if anything. And it is a Newcastle corner. VAR not interested in that. Would have been superbly soft. Trippier whips the ball in. In fact, it's more of a chip. And Bernd Leno can gather. Poor from Trippier. You expect so much more from him on set pieces, of course. Tim Ream with the ball now for Fulham, who finds João Palhinha, Portuguese international. What a signing he's been for Fulham this year, really adding some quality to that midfield. Him and Harrison Reed have been so industrious. It's Palhinha again, who slips there, much to the enjoyment of the St James's Park crowd. And Reed, that's a poor ball, but Almiron can only get his foot on it, and it goes out for a Fulham throw. Would have been interesting to see if they could have turned that one over and counter-attack there, Newcastle. Miguel Almiron, of course, Newcastle United's top scorer this season. What a wonder season it had, and pretty much having his own goal of the season tournament on his own. Some memorable strikes this year for the playmaker / winger, of course. It took him so long to get properly up and running up at Newcastle on Tyneside. And now he and truly is up and running with 9 goals this season in the Premier League. Top scorer for Newcastle. Joelinton. Good turn by Joelinton. He breaks forward with that burst in pace and power that he has, but can only run into the Fulham defender, Kenny Tete, who breaks. Tete. And again, it's a very bitty game here so far. It's a turnover in possession, and it squirms out for a throw. Newcastle boss Eddie Howe. His team have had the most possession so far, particularly in the last 10 minutes, but not really done a lot with that possession. Kenny Tete with the throw on the right-hand side, closest to us, the west stand of St James's Park. And again, it's turned over and rolled back. Shea goes long. And not a lot of play here, really bitty play. Just then a throw attacked by Kenny Tete. It's turned over in the midfield. Fabian Shea gets it. No pressure at all on the Newcastle defenders. And he plays it long over the top. And it just goes straight through to Bernd Leno, the goalkeeper for Fulham. Not a lot going on. Harrison Reed in midfield for Fulham. He breaks into the Newcastle half on the right-hand side. Finds William. William will be looking to make something happen for sure. He's got that spark. He looks up. He plays a long ball cross-field and finds Bobby De Cordova-Reid with a wonderful ball in the box. Reid to Andres Pereira, and it's cleared for a Fulham corner. Good defending by Fabian Shea. That's more like it from Fulham. Bursting into life. Pereira on the overlap. Brilliant ball by Bobby De Cordova-Reid just to slip him in there. Very short pass. It's Andres Pereira now taking the corner from the far side to whip it in swing with his right foot. Referee Robert Jones keeping a close eye of the tugging and pushing on going on in the box. It's Pereira, and Robert Jones has blown for a free kick to Newcastle. You could tell he was keeping a close eye there, and I think it's Alexander Mitrovic looking rather frustrated, shaking his head. Having a frustrating afternoon, the Serbian, who again had a remarkable start to the season, scoring for fun and at will. Had the suspension for the Chelsea game. That, of course, didn't affect Fulham. He went on to win 2-1, retains his place today. Did manage to get on the score sheet at the World Cup as well, despite carrying an injury. Although it didn't help Serbia too much in Qatar. Fabian Schär now for Newcastle. Finds Bruno Guimaraes, who looks to have shaken off that sore knock. One of those that probably require an ice pack later. Half-time. The Brazilian finds Sven Botman, who breaks into the Newcastle half, trying to gain some impetus here. Joe Linton, brilliant tackle by Kenny Tete, who just dispossesses him and brings Fulham up the pitch, and he's calling for help. He's had no option. Joe Linton comes back and no, he gets the ball. He gets the ball. Him and Tete are having a brilliant battle today. You're listening to alternate commentary of Newcastle Fulham as we bring you coverage today of all the action happening at St James's Park on the Commentary Hub, the home of alternative commentary. I'm Joe Lever. And it's a Newcastle free kick just inside the Fulham half. Very scrappy affair so far from both teams who have displayed good football this year. You wouldn't expect it to be such a scrappy game. But maybe with the stakes a little higher, Newcastle in 4th, Fulham in 6th, maybe it's what leads to one of those more scrappy affairs. Not a lot of action happening over in Stamford Bridge, to let you know. After half an hour, it's still Chelsea 0, Crystal Palace 0. No João Felix today, of course, for Chelsea. Newcastle, oh, they break into the box and it squirms all the way through, evades everyone. Miguel Almiron, edge of, shoots, and it's deflected wide. A little breakout of nothing there for Newcastle. It was whipped in by Joe Willock. Great touch by Willock past Kenny Tete. The first thing that Tete has done wrong this game, the Fulham fullback. He whips it across. It just beats Callum Wilson. Trippier gathers it. And Almiron in one of those positions where he scored a few times this season. Edge of the box. Cullen with his left foot. Can only find the Fulham defender. It's deflected wide for a Newcastle corner. That's more like it from a Newcastle perspective. Kieran Trippier to whip it in. He does this time. He finds only Issa Diop. And it's out to Willock with the volley. And it's wide. Handsomely wide as well for Joe Willock. A little bit more energy from Newcastle going forward there. It's 33 minutes on the clock. Bernd Leno to take it. Interesting this season as well. Fulham play from the back and they split the centre-backs. Tim Ream and Issa Diop normally hang right next to the goalkeeper. They look to be playing it out from the back. But there's a break in play at the moment. And there looks to be an issue with the Newcastle United goalkeeper, Nick Pope. Doesn't look to be good. He's got some treatment at the moment, and it's a double blow actually for Newcastle because Bruno Guimaraes is also receiving some strapping for that injury he received about 15 minutes ago. It's a scrape. It requires some strapping by the looks of things. I'm not sure if that's going to help if it's an impact injury, of course, but the Newcastle bench certainly know what they're doing, depending on what issue Bruno's got there. But Nick Pope looks to be quite concerned. You don't see the big man go down too often. Looks to be holding his knee, but I think the physio is looking at his ankle. Sven Botman is standing next to Nick Pope, not looking too pleased with the situation. Eddie Howe gesturing to his players, whether they're going to have to make a change before half-time. Looks like Guimaraes is going to be fine. He's doing up his boot now after receiving some strapping. Nick Pope gets back to his feet. He doesn't look comfortable, the Newcastle goalkeeper. They do have Martin Dubravka on the bench, who went on loan to Manchester United, was recalled from that loan. They would be hoping, Dubravka, decent goalkeeper no doubt, I've shown that before, in a Newcastle shirt at times as well, but Nick Pope has been so instrumental this season for Newcastle United, of course, combined with the back four in front of him. So organised. So such a good chemistry between all four of them this year. But he looks to be okay, the Newcastle goalkeeper. He's standing up now. Maybe he can get to half-time. Topping a lot of the stats this year, Nick Pope, from a goalkeeping perspective. And it's up at the other end, where Bernd Leno gets the game underway. But yeah, we were just mentioning that Fulham play out from the back and split the centre halves. But interestingly, normally when teams do that, they stick to their play. But Bernd Leno does switch it up and goes long every now and then as well. Sometimes does put them on the back foot, but you do need to mix it up. But Almiron now finds Callum Wilson, who can only run into Fulham traffic. It's Harrison Reed this time, as it always is, 9 times out of 10. The plucky midfielder in midfield, breaking things up. And it goes all the way back to Nick Pope, who gets his first touch since going down. Looks to be okay. He's calling for the ball, so he can't be in too much discomfort. And Fabian Schär brings it forward for Newcastle. Kieran Trippier hooks it to Tim Ream, who just about gets it clear. Issa Diop finds himself deep on the 6-yard line, but plays a brilliant pass out to Willian. That's a fantastic pass by the French centre-half. Willian with his feet, jinking past one, past two in the Newcastle midfield, and breaks and finds Harrison Reed. Brilliant play by Willian. Reed out to Lerwin Kazara, who whips the ball in, but he only finds Nick Pope. Little on quality here in this game so far. 37 minutes played here at the commentary hub. Bringing you alternative commentary today of Newcastle Fulham. Hoping the game's going to burst into life. Here we go. Kieran Trippier on the right-hand side, looking to do just that for Fulham. He's got plenty of space. He breaks into the box. Cut back. Oh, and Newcastle is squared. But Joe Willock fires over. I'm not sure if that one did take a deflection, but this could have been the best opportunity of the game for Newcastle. Trippier, he had so much time. Poor defending by Fulham. Longstaff on the overlap, cuts it back to Willock, and it's blazed over. That's a chance that maybe he could have got a bit more. In fact, the corner's been given. Yes, it did. It took a nick off the Fulham defender. Not all in vain for Newcastle. Kieran Trippier has the ball on the right-hand side. He whips the ball in from the corner spot. It's in there, but it's cleared again by Issa Diop, the man mountain at the back for Fulham. And Longstaff hooks it clear to Trippier, but can't find him. Bobby Decordova-Reid clears it, but only finds Trippier, who looks to whip the ball in with that quality that he does have. It's to the back post. Kenny Tete out jumps Joe Linton, and it will go for a Newcastle throw down by the corner flag. Over on the close side to us, Joe Linton has the ball. Rather interesting career he's had for Newcastle United. Striker turned winger, turned midfielder, back to winger again. Kind of play anywhere. Dan Burn has the ball. But he's given it away. And Alexander Mitrovic tries to turn, but again, I can only find Sven Botman, who finds Fabian Schär, looks to break forward. Callum Wilson with the turn into the box. Wilson! Great strike and good save by Bernd Leno, who tips it over. Great turn by Wilson there. Turned his man. Great centre-forward play by Callum Wilson. That's exactly what he's good at. The turn, the finish. Brilliant turn. Holds off Tim Ream, who's strong himself. Gets a great shot off, but it's straight at Bernd Leno. Not a lot more that Callum Wilson could have done with his effort. Brilliant centre-forward play. And it's a good save by Bernd Leno. Newcastle looking for a goal now. Down by Lalise's end late on in the first half. It helps settle those nerves going into the second. Kieran Trippier again with the free kick. Corner, sorry. Whips it in deep, and it's only found a Fulham head again. Story of the first half, particularly from Kieran Trippier on the corner's perspective. Nick Pope now has the ball. He goes long. Trippier finds Willock, but it's just gone past Newcastle's number 28, and Bernd Leno gathers, who finds Willian. Willian to Ream. Plays it all the way back now to Bernd Leno, who slips but clears it long upfield. Dan Burn wins the header, but can only find Mitrovic. Mitrovic down to Pereira. Back to Reed. Reed goes home to Kenny Tete. Issa Diop. And all the way back to Bernd Leno again. Fulham noticing when Newcastle have a chance, they just want to take the sting out of the game. Very sensible tactics from Fulham, just diffuse those situations as Newcastle look to build up a head of steam. We know what happens at St James's Park when that happens, particularly when the crowd are on side. Can make things very difficult for the away opposition. But Fulham just looking to just disrupt and upset, and they've looked good going forward at times, albeit with sometimes not the right pass in the final third. In today's other Premier League game at the same time, it's Chelsea versus Crystal Palace, 0-0 currently at Stamford Bridge. And Trippier has the ball now on the right-hand side for Newcastle United. Slips the ball inside to Callum Wilson, who hooks it back, but it's cleared by Kenny Tete. Only as far as the Newcastle head, and it's broke back now to Wilson. But he can't find anybody. And it's cleared by Bobby De Cordova-Reid, only as far as Kieran Trippier. Almiron, oh, brilliant flick by Almiron. Another brilliant flick by Bruno Guimaraes. That would have been lovely, but couldn't find Almiron again with the 1-2. Instead, it comes back to Longstaff. Longstaff looks to have been fouled in a really dangerous position. It's a Newcastle free kick, and this is Kieran Trippier territory. About 25 yards from goal. Andreas Pereira with the challenge for Fulham. He's remonstrating with Robert Jones, the referee, but he's having none of it, and it's a clear trip by Andreas Pereira. And yes, that's as clear a free kick you're going to see. A frustrating one because it was soft. But this is a fantastic opportunity for Kieran Trippier to at least test Bernd Leno in the Fulham goal. Tim Ream still remonstrating with Robert Jones. It's not going to change his opinion. The free kick's the free kick. If you're enjoying today's commentary, why don't you head over to our Facebook page, by the way. It's the best way to follow the Commentary Hub. Go to facebook.com/the Commentary Hub to see what we've got coming up this week. And you can listen back to some of our older commentaries as well if you want to hear some of the coverage. There's loads of games on over Christmas on the Commentary Hub. Plenty more action for you in 2023. It's a debate now around who takes the Newcastle free kick, although I'm sure it won't be a debate in Kieran Trippier's mind. Scored a few free kicks for Newcastle since signing from Atletico Madrid 12 months ago. What a signing that was. Been there a year now. Kieran Trippier. Wearing the captain's armband for Newcastle United. It looks to me as if it seemed like the foul. Kieran Trippier looks to me to have rolled the ball back a little bit here. It looked to me that the free kick was a little closer than that. Maybe he's not going to go for a shot. It's Kieran Trippier standing over the ball for Newcastle United. He whips it. He does go for goal. It hits the top of the wall, and it will go behind for a Newcastle corner. About a minute and a half to go until half-time. Pending no injury time, of course. We'll see what's the fourth officials seen today. I can't imagine there being too much gaps in play, a couple of injuries, nothing more. Miguel Almiron now, the short corner, plays it back to Trippier, who whips it back stick, and Kenny Tete has to defend it well, but it's only up in the air, and he clears it with a second header out of the Newcastle box, out the Fulham box, and it goes all the way upfield. Not a lot of action. Retained over. Oh, Harrison Reed nearly gets put through there. That was a terrible back pass. Kieran Trippier playing it back to Nick Pope. It looked like it was fairly just get a gap of possession and roll it back to the goalkeeper, but a short back pass. Harrison Reed was nearly in there. If it had been perhaps Willian or somebody else with a bit more pace maybe, or might have actually put Nick Pope under more pressure, but the Newcastle goalkeeper had to be quick off his line. 40 yards out of goal there to clear that one. Or 30 yards or so at least. Harrison Reed now for Fulham. Mitrovic. Back to Paulinho, who spreads it wide to Kazawa, almost intercepted by Almiron. Paulinho now plays it out to the far side where Bobby De Cordova-Reid is. It's intercepted by Trippier. It's a Fulham throw midway through Newcastle's half. But the throw goes back to Tim Ream. It's a Diop now along the back four. Kenny Tete has been heavily involved in this first half for Fulham. And offside Ball played over the top. Wasn't going anywhere in particular, though. I think Mitrovic was just straight offside in a further advanced position. Marco Silva urging his team up. Get up the field. Pen Newcastle in with what remaining minutes we have left in this first half. And Sven Botman has the ball for Newcastle United. Sean Longstaff in midfield sweeps it out to Joe Linton, who's on the right-hand side now, and he plays a brilliant ball down to Miguel Almiron. Almiron on the right-hand side, trying to cut in on that trusted left foot of his. Can only find Bruno Gomes, who flicks it over the top for Almiron. Good defending by Fulham. Paulina clears, but only up in the air. And finds Longstaff. Great header into Callum Wilson. Great turn by Wilson. Wilson! Oh, and that was the best chance of the game. That was the best chance of the game. Callum Wilson. What a live wire up front for Newcastle United. Brilliant header down. It was skied by João Paulina. Headed down by Longstaff to Callum Wilson. It was a brilliant turn. And he had a clear sighted goal. Tried to bend it into the right-hand corner, but Bernd Leno saved with both hands. Gathered well. Not enough power behind it, but big chance. Big chance there for Callum Wilson. 3 minutes of injury time. We've had one of them. We're listening to the commentary hub as we bring you commentary of all the action happening at St James's Park today. Newcastle United versus Fulham in the Premier League. It's 0-0 currently. And it's been a sort of scrappy first half, but a lot on the line. A couple of moments. Both teams will be, I'm sure, happy to get in and regroup at half-time. Kenny Tete now deep in the Newcastle half with the throw. And he holds on to the ball for a little while. He's trying to find some options. He's found Harrison Reed, who gets tumbled over by Joe Willett. The referee looks to be interested. It's a bit of a scramble. Which way is he going to give it? It looked to me like a free kick to Fulham. Joe Willett lent into his man, or did Reed nudge his way back into him too far? I think it is a Fulham free kick. Oh, yeah, Joe Willett all over the back of Harrison Reed. Slams into the back of him. It is a Fulham free kick. It's getting a bit heated here. Andreas Pereira and Joe Willock having a few choice words said between them. Or is it an obstruction? What's the referee doing here? This seems a little bit peculiar, albeit it's not a penalty or an edge of the box free kick or something as a board. He's bizarrely given a drop ball. I can't really work out why there, unless there was a foul throw. But even then, you wouldn't give the drop ball. Very peculiar. Very peculiar indeed. Not sure what happened there, unless it was obstruction, because Harrison Reed leant over the ball, possibly. But it's cleared up the field, and things getting a bit tempered now between Callum Wilson and Harrison Reed in the midfield. And Marco Silva on the touchline, remonstrating with the fourth official. He's furious, Marco Silva. Graham Scott copping a lot of that, today's fourth official. And we've seen a replay now of Issa Diop manhandling Callum Wilson, 6.5 dozen of the other, but it's led to a Newcastle free kick on the halfway line, which Kieran Trippier will take. A very high line from the Fulham defence, looking to catch Newcastle's players offside. Bruno Guimaraes, meanwhile, just seeing shots of him, actually in tears. I wonder if that's the injury bothering Almiron. Long distance strike. Ball broke. And he had a long-distance strike. And just seen Bruno Guimaraes leave the field in tears now as the referee blows his half-time whistle. Looks to be something's bothering the Brazilian midfielder, but that's for all now at St James's Park. Bruno Guimaraes walks off in tears. He's clearly bothered by something, whether it's that foot injury. He knows he can't carry on. Again, it looked more like an impact injury than a pull or a strain. We'll try and get more on that for you at half-time. But you're listening to the Commentary Hub, bringing you coverage today of Newcastle United versus Fulham and all the action happening at St James's Park. I'm Joe Lever, and I'll be back with you for all the second half action. It's 0-0. Welcome back for second half coverage of Newcastle versus Fulham in the Premier League. You're listening to the Commentary Hub. I'm your alternative commentator, Joe Lever, today, as we bring you live coverage of today's action from St James's Park. And it's been a nitty-gritty, bitty first half. Both teams having a couple of opportunities, but nothing clear-cut apart from Callum Wilson at the end. Bruno Guimaraes looking rather upset going off at the end of the first half. He took a whack from Tim Ream midway through the first half. I think we can see Alan Saint-Maximin, French winger, who, what a cult figure he is up at Newcastle. Superb player, has all the tricks in the book, can send a man left, can send a man right, and sometimes himself. But it looks like he may be warming up to come on for the second half. It's unconfirmed at this stage, and of course we'll bring you that news as soon as we have it. In today's other game in the Premier League, kicked off at the same time. It's at Stamford Bridge, and Chelsea not going exactly according to plan against Crystal Palace, albeit it's 0-0 at the moment. It's been a tough run for manager Graham Potter, although they did announce the Ukrainian winger Mikhailo Mudryk today as a signing for them. Huge fee. We'll bring you some more on that later on in today's game. Stealing him from Arsenal by the looks of things for a hefty price. I'm sure that is up there with the transfer record fees, no doubt. And speaking of record transfers, Alexander Isak will be open for some minutes from Newcastle. The club's record transfer is on the bench after a long road back from injury. A few minutes in the Cups recently. And looks like Joe Willock's about to get us underway. Newcastle kicking from left to right towards their favoured Gallagher end in the second half. Fulham kicking from right to left towards the Leicester stand. Joe Willock gets us underway. We'll bring in teams in a second, but it looks to me as if, yes, Alan Saint-Maximin is on in the second half for Bruno Guimaraes, the midfielder for Fulham. Looks like Joe Linton will drop into midfield for Saint-Maximin, who finds the ball early on. Joe Linton to Callum Wilson. Oh, Willock finds space. Maximin breaks into the box early on, and he gets his head up. He finds Wilson, but it breaks the front defence and skied by Longstaff. An early impact by Alan Saint-Maximin. Apart from that, the teams are unchanged. We'll go through the lineups for you. Newcastle, Nick Pope in goal. Kieran Trippier, Sven Botman, Fabian Schär, Dan Burn, Sean Longstaff, Joe Linton, Alan Saint-Maximin coming on for Bruno Guimaraes. Miguel Almiron, Joe Willock and Callum Wilson complete the 11 for Newcastle. I don't think we've got any Fulham changes at all. Bernd Leno in goal. Kenny Tete at right back. Busy half for him. Just pause for the action now as Bobby Decordova-Reid has it. It's a free kick for offside. Yes, so the lineups for Fulham. Yes, Bernd Leno, Kenny Tete at back, Tim Ream, Issa Diop and Lervin Kazawa at left back. In midfield, Harrison Reed, João Palhinha, the Portuguese international, Willian, Andres Pereira, Bobby Decordova-Reid make up the three attacking in midfield, and Alexander Mitrovic, of course, Fulham's marksman, leading the line. No changes for them in the start of the second half. Minute and a half into the action down at St James's Park, and it's again back to a bit of ping ball in the midfield and cleared all the way back to Nick Pope. Newcastle will be looking to be a little bit more attacking this half, albeit with the chance at the end for Callum Wilson, which he crafted so well for himself. A couple of efforts for him in the first half. Mitrovic one was blocked, not a lot more for Fulham, although they did have some decent early play. Maximin has it out wide. He looks to attack Kenny Tete. He dances left, he dances right, and he finds Joe Linton, who's also on the left-hand side. Issa Diop comes across, and Newcastle United win a throw deep in Fulham's half. Longstaff picks up the ball in midfield, plays it all the way back to Kieran Trippier, who's played almost as a centre midfielder himself now. Miguel Almiron. He gets tugged back there rather cynically by Lervin Kazawa. And the French fullback surely, and yes, he does. He picks up the first booking of the game for that from Robert Jones. And rather cynical here, Almiron playing the 1-2 with Joe Willock, gets tugged back. He wasn't going to be going any further after that by Kazawa. His first yellow card of the season. Another player who very good for Fulham to attract, a 30-year-old from Paris Saint-Germain. Was at Monaco previously. He does have 13 caps for France, the last of those coming in 2019. But again, Anthony Robinson, the USA international, keeping him out of the team. And the ball swung in from that free kick. It drifts out wide. Trippier has a poor one by his standards, and he goes out for a Fulham throw, which Kenny Tete will take down by the corner flag on the far side. 0-0 here. You're listening to the Commentary Hub, alternative commentary, the home of alternative commentary, in fact. If you want to get more information, make sure you give us a follow on Twitter. It's at Commentary Live 1. Plenty going on. We'll keep you up to date with all the latest goings on and all the big stories in the Premier League and beyond. Make sure you give us a follow. Nick Pope has the ball for Newcastle. He plays it out to Sven Botman, who finds his partner at the back, Fabian Schär. Schär into Almiron. Great 1-2 with Longstaff. Almiron breaks. That's a bit more silky from Newcastle. Willock finds Trippier on the right-hand side, who finds a lovely ball into Almiron. Two men around him. Comes back on his left foot. He jinks left, he jinks right. Finds Willock, who tosses it up back to Almiron. He's going to do well to win that. Bobby Decordova-Reid steps in and he's got it by the corner flag. Looks to have gone out for a throw. Yes, it has. Newcastle throw right next to the corner flag. If it had been the other side, it would have been a corner. It's that close. Kieran Trippier will take it. He's looking a lot for options and goes short to Willock. Back to Trippier. That's Kazawa for company. Willock to Longstaff. Longstaff back to Trippier on the right side. Through the legs. And finds Almiron, who doesn't quite make it. It's Kazawa who clears for a Newcastle corner in front of the Gallagher end. And Trippier will take it. Newcastle, of course, on some incredible run at the moment. And we're looking, particularly in the league, of course, despite the defeat to Sheffield Wednesday in the Cup. Trippier whips the ball in. And that looks like there's a header from Callum Wilson that's just sprayed off his head and can't get trouble. Bernd Leno in the goal. Bounces off his head. It was a good ball in. Half decent header by Wilson, but so far wide. And yes, not going to trouble Bernd Leno in the Fulham goal. But it'd be 14 top flight games without defeat for Newcastle, if they could avoid defeat today. Incredible run. I think when we were looking back in the autumn, they wouldn't be able to sustain it, but they certainly have. Only defeat this season coming at Anfield. No shame in that. Willian now on the right-hand side for Fulham. Cuts back. He gets his head up and finds Harrison Reed, who's running into the Newcastle box, whips the ball back. Sven Botman defends well. You can see him keeping his hands by his side. Didn't want to give anything away there, and it's a Fulham corner. 51 minutes on the clock here. And Fulham with their first corner of the second half. Over in the corner, surrounded by those Newcastle fans. I'm sure he's getting a warm welcome. Whipped in. Up goes João Palhinha, and it's a looping header. Goes sailing over the bar into Nick Pope, who's looking to get the action underway quickly again. Nick Pope had a knock in the first half, looked to be having a spot of bother, but he's come out for the second, unlike his teammate Bruno Guimaraes. Newcastle fans be worried about that and be checking their phones for injury updates on one of their main men. 3 assists and 3 goals for Bruno this year in midfield. He does so much more than that for Fulham. Alan Saint-Maximin finds himself down the left-hand side, and it's a throw to Newcastle. Harrison Reed thinks it should be the other way. Really good midfielder, Harrison Reed. Started his career at Southampton, loan moves at Norwich, which helped him blossom under Daniel Farke. Finds himself as a key part of Fulham's midfield. Was last season in the Championship as well, but to be in the top 6 with Fulham and performing as well as he is, that would be rather pleasing for the former England youth man. Definitely harder to force himself into Gareth Southgate plans these days. midfield options with the likes of Conor Gallagher and other youngsters emerging in those positions. And it's a free kick to Newcastle, to Fulham, apologies. Bernardo humps it up the field all the way through, and it squirms out. Trippier keeps it in play and goes back to Nick Pope, who looks to go long. A bit of pressure there from Andreas Pereira, the Brazilian playmaker, who again has had an incredible season, really, for Fulham. I don't think many would have expected that his loan move would have gone so well. From Manchester United, of course, who have had a good season under Erik ten Hag. Couldn't find room for him in that midfield. He's got 2 Premier League goals, but 5 assists, Andreas Pereira. Very productive year for him. And he finds himself in midfield now. Great turn. Tries to find Bobby Decordova-Reid down the left. Is cut out by Trippier. Back in the midfield. Andreas Pereira finds himself on the ball again and have a second opportunity at it. Looks for Lerwin Kurzawa. Finds him. Kurzawa gets his head up. But he can only... Well, he manages to find Bobby Decordova-Reid and goes for the 1-2. Decordova-Reid hooks it in, and that will go for a Fulham corner. Deflected off of Fabian Schär. Some good early pressure there from Fulham. A couple of corners. I'll be hoping to make one count, though. It'll be Andreas Pereira to take it for Fulham. Let's get another assist on his books. It's on the on the closest side to us, the left hand side, whipping it in down far left, whipping it in with his right foot to curl it in. And he beats the first man, Pereira. Oh, tipped over by Nick Pope, and Tim Ream was lurking at the back post to nod one home there. That had to be tipped by good goalkeeping from Nick Pope. And yes, Tim Ream was looking to get behind. Whether he would have got on it would have been another question entirely. The American certainly suggested that he was inches from that. Would have fancied getting his head on the end of that, no doubt. Pereira whips it in. Oh, and it squirms to Mitrovic, gets it under control, but can't find Maximin. Oh, Maximin breaks clear. Alan Saint-Maximin finds Joe Willock. And his ball is poor, and it squirms through to Bernd Leno. In fact, it was Callum Wilson trying to find Joe Willock. But no joy. Bernd Leno gathers the ball back to Tim Ream. A little bit more tempo in this second half. Teams look to be a little bit more at it. It's a Diop. Sweeps it well. He's very good for a big man on the ball at centre half. And he finds Kenny Tete, who breaks up the field on the right-hand side to find Willian. Willian is inside. It finds João Palhinha. And back to Issa Diop, who finds Tim Ream. And they play it amongst themselves, Diop and Tim Ream. 56 minutes gone. We're bringing you live coverage today of all the action at St James's Park from the Commentary Hub. Make sure you follow us on all the socials. Sven Botman for Newcastle. Strolls forward into the Fulham half, unchallenged. Goes back to Dan Burn. Just as soon as I said there was a bit of tempo in the game, it looks to have slowed down and stalled again. Joe Willock spreads it out wide to Kieran Trippier. Trippier goes back to Schär, who finds Botman, and Newcastle keen to retain possession. No news from Stamford Bridge in today's other game at 2 o'clock. Chelsea 0, Crystal Palace 0. Although the story of the day will involve Mikhailo Mudryk, Chelsea's new number 15, was unveiled at half-time with draped rather gloriously in the Ukrainian flag. Lovely to see that after the trouble the nation's had in the last 12 months. Walking onto the Stamford Bridge pitch, looking rather pleased with himself, as I'm sure not many Arsenal fans will be pleased. Long since mooted for a move to the Emirates. Still 0-0 there at Stamford Bridge, and of course the North London derby at 4:30 later on today. Who could forget? Meanwhile, Newcastle on the attack with Alan Saint-Maximin. He crosses the ball in, finds Joe Willock, who takes it on his chest and has to go back out to Saint-Maximin. Couldn't find another person in the box. Maximin jinks left, right, as he normally does, whips the ball in, but Issa Diop clears. Can only find Longstaff, who sweeps it back to Trippier. Newcastle looking to pen Fulham into the half now. Willock sweeps it back out to Almiron. Almiron finds Trippier. Trippier, can he get a ball in? He does. It's deep, but Leno gathers. Does make you think. 58 minutes on the clock. Will Eddie Howe turn to Alexander Isak on the Newcastle bench? Club record signing. 2 goals in just 3 Premier League games. The injury was what really spoiled his progress. He came back and got minutes in the games against Leicester City and Sheffield Wednesday, in both cup games for Newcastle. Didn't find the back of the net, a little bit rusty, but a player with real pedigree, real potential. Signed from Real Sociedad in the summer. One of those signings that befits a big financial takeover at a club. So 60 million, I think that was Isak went for. Certainly looks to be perhaps Newcastle's main number 9 going forward, with the issues that Callum Wilson has with injury occasionally, albeit, of course, Wilson is quality. But you'd think that Eddie Howe would be hanging his hopes on Alexander Isak, and perhaps we'll see him in the second half at some point. It's still 0-0 here, bringing you live coverage of all the action at St James's Park on the commentary hub. And Joe Linton, it looks to have won a free kick. He has for Fulham on the edge of the box. It was a bit of scrappy play, and he looked to have taken on Tim Ream, and Ream's scythed him down there. And he picks up a yellow card as Tim Ream for this challenge. Oh yes, it's a poor one from Tim Ream. Joe Linton jinxed, and he just knocked the ball past Ream. And Ream looked to have, in his head, thought he was going to get the ball and took a big hack out of Joe Linton. And it's a free kick to Newcastle, right on the edge of the box. It favours the right footer, sort of to the far side, 20 yards from goal. Picture book position for a right footer to take, and you've got Kieran Trippier on the field, whose delivery hasn't been that good today, but he's scored 3 kicks in this position for Newcastle, for England. Tried and tested. Fabian Schär's interested though. He's talking to Trippier. Might be saying, oh, you've had a couple of wayward ones today. Why don't I have a go? But this is rubber stamp, textbook position for Trippier. 6 in the Fulham wall. And it's Schär to take. He whips it low and hits the post. And it's Almiron back, and it's deflected wide, and it'll be a corner to Newcastle. It was Fabian Schär with the free kick. Looks like he won that conversation with Trippier. Trippier stepped back, and Schär took 1 step forward. No run up at all. Bent it around the wall, but not over. Around the wall where the goalkeeper was, burnt Leno. And Leno wasn't going to make it. It was on the goalkeeper's side where you think he'd have it covered. It comes off the post, and I think Callum Wilson just took a deflection, tried to stab it goalward. Trippier in the box now, and it's flicked on by Callum Wilson, but that's just wide. Another chance, semi-chance goes begging. In fact, it was Joe Willock there with the header. Oh no, and it was Callum Wilson. Callum Wilson there. I think Joe Willock had the stab on goal following the rebound off the post from Schär's free kick. Newcastle looking more dangerous. And Callum Wilson with his header there that just drifts wide. Of course, these sides faced each other early on in the season at Craven Cottage, and what a game it was. Maybe not for Fulham, but Newcastle. Now 4-1 winners that day. Almiron scoring one of the goals of the season, one of his goal of the season competitions that he's having with himself, and one for the ages. A brilliant strike. And another yellow card for Fulham here. Andres Pereira takes it. That's Tim Ream, Kazawa and Pereira all in the book so far in the first 15 minutes of the second half. He absolutely hacks down Callum Wilson, who just quickly got turned over, and he broke through. 5th yellow card of the season for Andres Pereira. And it's a free kick to Newcastle, about 30 yards central. So a difficult position, just on the right-hand side, closer to us. Difficult to whip one in. I'm sure Trippier could manage it. It's Trippier standing over the ball. Whips the ball in, and it's dangerous, and Bernd Leno has to punch clear, and I think he's cleared out the Newcastle attacker as well. Trippier has it on the halfway line. He looks up, and he plays it safe back to Sven Botman. Botman up back to Joelinton, who's dropped into midfield to cover Bruno Guimaraes. Alan Saint-Maximin looking to get himself involved in the game. He's had a few nice touches. He burst down the left-hand side. Can only find Dan Burn, who finds it back to Joelinton. Joelinton, brilliant crossfield pass to Hugo Almiron, who has a bit of space. Miguel Almiron, apologies. But it comes to nothing. Alexander Mitrovic. Oh, break on for Fulham. Bobby duckered over Reed. Found by Mitrovic. He's down the left-hand side. He looks up. He doesn't have many options. One of them is Pereira. He finds Pereira in the box. He's tugged back. Is that a penalty to Fulham? No, he's told to get to his feet. Pereira still has the ball. Play is going on. And it falls to Willock on the edge of the box. It looked to me as if Pereira was dragged back, and that should be a penalty to Fulham. But Decordova-Reid still has the ball. He jinks. Is that a foul by Kieran Trippier? Fulham are incensed about both decisions, both the substitutes and the players on the pitch. The players didn't know if the referee had blown. Real confusion there. It looked to me as if Sven Botman had tugged back Pereira. He did go down softly, but if he hadn't gone down, you had a clear shot on goal. So why would he have gone down, of course? Maybe he wanted to guarantee the penalty. Who knows? We'll see some more in the replay, hopefully. And then a challenge by Decordova-Reid looked to be upended by Trippier, but ref was not interested in that either, Robert Jones. Miguel Almiron on the right-hand side comes in on his left foot. And he beats one man. Burst at the Newcastle defence. The Fulham defence. He breaks into the box. Almiron. And his shot, shot, hits Issa Diop and goes out for a Newcastle corner. Fulham players are still incensed. They're asking VAR to check. Here we are. Oh, and that looks to me as if I've seen them given. It's Dan Burn, in fact, on Pereira. The ball breaks and it just has a little tug and Pereira goes down. By the letter of the law, it's a penalty, although it's soft. And the Decordova-Reid one looks to me more like a free kick. But Robert Jones needs to get a hold of the situation here. The players look to be very cross and the Newcastle players are responding to that now. He's having a word with the captain, Tim Ream, telling them to sort things out. The VAR is being checked, I understand. They're checking for a penalty to Fulham. The player's gone all the way up the other end. But it's checking for a possible foul on Bobby Decordova-Reid. And it could be a penalty or a free kick. They're not interested in the one with Pereira, which, if you ask me, possibly could be more of a potential one. And the referee is heading over to the VAR monitor to check for the Bobby Decordova foul on him, which happened a few moments ago. The play has gone up the other end. Almiron had won a corner for Newcastle. Robert Jones now has the task of going over and checking the screen, and he's looking at the Bobby Decordova-Reid challenge by Kieran Trippier. Now, Bobby Decordova-Reid's foot is just inside the box, is where the contact is made, but his body is on the line. So is it where that to me looks like it could be on a technicality, a penalty? Will Robert Jones agree? He's given a penalty to Fulham. He's given the penalty. It looked as if it was inside the area we're talking millimetres. I thought it could have been on incredibly soft. If they didn't get the penalty for the Andreas Pereira challenge, they get it for the Bobby Decordova-Reid challenge. Fulham have a penalty at St James's Park. It's 0-0 to take the lead on 67 minutes here. Still confusion. The Newcastle players are unhappy. It's brilliant skill by Bobby Decordova-Reid doing the Ronaldinho Elastico flip-flap past his player. And then Trippier, he burst into the box. And it's a tough one. I mean, I guess by the letter of the law, if you'd feel, I think it's one of those you'd feel more comfortable giving a free kick than a penalty. But if it's letter of the law, it's in the box, the contact was made, albeit the Andreas Pereira one looked a little bit more, perhaps it could have been. Either way, Fulham won't care. They have a penalty in front of the Leazes end. Now, this could be huge for Fulham. Andreas Pereira is the man going to take it. He's surrounded by Newcastle players. The referee, Nick Pope, wants a word as well. Bobby Decordova-Reid actually has the ball at the moment, albeit Andreas Pereira is the man standing on the edge of the box. There's two balls on the pitch, in fact. Nick Pope has one. Bobby Decordova-Reid is getting into a bit of a silly jousting with Nick Pope. No need for that. He's got hold of the ball. Now, is Bobby Decordova-Reid taking the penalty, or is Andreas Pereira taking the penalty? It looks like Pereira is taking it. And after all that passing around, Pereira standing on the spot, Bobby Decordova-Reid with the ball. The main penalty taker, of course, Alexander Mitrovic, then grabs the ball and steps up. He wasn't anywhere in shot at all. Maybe that's the calmness of the man. And wow, what a moment for the former Newcastle striker in front of those Newcastle fans at that end. The Fulham fans will be up in the gods above. Mitrovic, Fulham's top scorer this season, from the spot. Could he dent Newcastle's Champions League hopes and push Fulham further up the table? Mitrovic steps up. Oh, and he slipped, but he's found the back of the net. He's found the back of the net. He slipped over, but the referee, the Fulham players have... Oh, no, this could be retaken here. Mitrovic has scored. The ball may have moved forward. He's double-touched it twice. Mitrovic slipped over and found the back of the net, but he slipped over. I think we might have a case of if he's touched it twice. Drama at St James's Park today. Oh, and he's kicked it. Mitrovic has slipped over and he's kicked the ball onto his standing foot, which looks to me as if there's two contacts. That can't count as a goal if he's kicked it twice. It's not one clean sweep. The Newcastle player spotted it immediately. The referee, Robert Jones. Mitrovic looks distraught. We're waiting confirmation of it. I think it's going to be a goal kick or a free kick, possibly, which may well be would it be obstruction, or what's the letter of the law here for this one? It's taken for the penalty. Yes, it's 0-0, and that's not going to stand. Mitrovic, the drama here, Newcastle players noticed immediately. Mitrovic slipped as he took the penalty against his former team. It hit his standing foot. Two connections means that it's ruled out, and it's 0-0 still here as Miguel Almiron has the ball. And he wins a Newcastle throw deep in Fulham's half. Newcastle looking to respond. That would have fired up the crowd. Drama here. 70 minutes on the clock. You're listening to Alternative Commentary. I'm Joe Lever with you on the Commentary Hub today. Be sure to tune in for great alternative commentaries on our station. Coming up at 4:30, of course, is the North London Derby. And here is the man himself. We spoke about him earlier on. Alexander Isak. Newcastle United club record signing, makes his Premier League return. He comes on for Joe Willock. Callum Wilson stays on. Looks like Newcastle are going for this, albeit at 0-0. Not shutting up shop, settled for a point. Eddie Howe, he's throwing on a second striker. Isak would love a goal now. It looks to be a drop ball by the looks of things. Joe Linton has been instructed to kick the ball back, I believe, to Fulham's goalkeeper. I don't know. But he's not. He's going to play on. And finds Miguel Almiron. Almiron to Sean Longstaff. Longstaff to Trippier. Trippier on the right-hand side. Closest to us. Whips the ball in Share over the top and it evades everybody. Kenny Tete ducks out the way. It's a cauldron at the moment. At St James's Park, you can tell there's a lot of disruption. The players are agitated. The Fulham players look frustrated, a bit crestfallen at the penalty. Well, you say it's a penalty miss. He technically scored it, but it's a penalty miss after you make two contacts with the ball and slip over. Eddie Howe is barking orders at his men. He scents blood in the water here, that Fulham may be a little bit out of sorts following that. They may think that there's an opportunity to strike. Sven Botman has it. He plays it to Longstaff. Longstaff looks to find Trippier, but he can't find him. He whips it in too harsh and it goes out for a Fulham goal kick. News to bring you from today's other game. In today's other 2 o'clock kickoff at Stamford Bridge, Chelsea have taken the lead. Kai Havertz, the German international. Again, another one that seems to frustrate a lot. So much ability, but doesn't seem to be able to string it together in games. He's got a goal, an important goal for Graham Potter and his side against Crystal Palace today. They lead 1-0. 73 minutes coming up to now as we bring you coverage from all the action happening at St James's Park. And there is a lot of action, despite it being 0-0. Game has come to life somewhat in the second half. And it's a throw. Dan Burn finds Joe Linton, who's been heavily involved, as he normally is, for Newcastle United. Sven Botman. Botman just breaks inside the Fulham half, breaks the lines, actually, with a good ball to Alexander Isak, his first touch of the ball. But he gets dispossessed, and Willian sweeps up for Fulham. But he gives the ball away to Miguel Almiron. Can he find Wilson? He does. Great defending by Tim Ream. Brilliant. There was danger there for Fulham, and Kazawa comes away with the ball. Kazawa upfield. Great tackle by Almiron. Brilliant tackle by Almiron, too. Showing he's not just a brilliant attacker, putting his foot in. The Newcastle fans will no doubt love that, but there was danger there for Fulham. Tim Ream, so strong, so solid. We look to see a couple of Fulham changes now. Tosin Adarabioyo looks to be coming on. He partnered Tim Ream in the win over Chelsea. I imagine he'll come on for possibly Ream, who is captain, of course, but he's on a yellow card. It's a Diop, of course, who's the other centre-half. And it looks to be Dan James coming on as well, the on-loan Leeds winger, Welsh international, to bring a bit of pace to Fulham's attacking line. Kazawa with the throw, right on the touchline, down by the dugouts, and he finds Andres Pereira. Deckled over Reed, goes past one, goes past two, and wins a Fulham free kick. In a decent position, in fact, probably for a cross. Halfway through Newcastle's half. It seems to be as this game is one where one goal may win it. The Mitrovic could miss penalty, could have been a huge moment in both club seasons. Whether that be Fulham kicking on even dizzier heights than sixth, or of course Newcastle United sitting in that top four at the moment, that may have affected them, especially with the North London derby later on today. Up we go. Joe Linton. He heads it clear from an in-swinging free kick. It's still not cleared away. João Paulina has the ball and he hooks it goalwards, but Nick Pope will gather that. In fact, it goes for a goal kick. Scrappy again inside the box. Mitrovic hasn't had the best of times in there. He looks to be, I think him and João Paulina couldn't make up their mind who was going to have that one. Dan Burn beats Willian with a turn of pace. Don't say that often from Dan Burn, but he gives the ball away, sloppy. Andres Pereira gets his head up, edge of the Newcastle box. He goes past one with his left foot, but he runs wide. Kazawa looks to get the ball in. Can he find Mitrovic? He finds Decordova Reed instead, who tries to turn. Harrison Reed. And it's broken clear, and St. Maximin wins the ball. And it's to Joe Linton, who can break. Newcastle look to break. And Alexander Isak skips past one, but it's well recovered by João Paulina. But it falls to Isak, who finds Alan St. Maximin, who breaks at the Fulham defence, whips the ball across to Callum Wilson. It's evaded everybody, and it's kept in by Callum Wilson. Poor goalkeeping by Bernd Leno, who should have smothered that. Callum Wilson, good save by Bernd Leno. Good shot. Miguel Almiron on the edge of the box. Almiron finds St. Maximin, gets a shot away, and it's just wide by Alan St. Maximin. Drilled hard and low, and that must have been a matter of inches past the right-hand side post. Bernd Leno here with the ball. The ball come across. Bernd Leno should have gathered. He was asleep at the wheel. Callum Wilson checked back in, and his cross shot. Good save by Bernd Leno. Probably wouldn't have troubled him, but still, he needed to get a hand on it. Miguel Almiron was lurking. It breaks to Alan St. Maximin, who swings his right foot at it, and as he's going down, and it's just centimetres wide. How the French winger would have loved that. Very popular character, very bubbly character, very colourful character on Tynecastle. You can see him on Tyneside, sorry. Tynecastle, one of the two. You see him dancing quite a lot. He likes to partake in a bit of fun and games, does St. Maximin. Great characters in the Premier League. You need them. Dan James comes on for Fulham in place of Willian, the Brazilian. And Andres Pereira comes off, the playmaker. Interesting. Maybe Fulham switching more defensively. Tosin Adarabioyo comes on as well. So it looks to be as if Fulham, they've gone to 5 at the back there. Willian and Pereira off. 2 more attacking players. Dan James obviously come on for one of those, but yes, they've gone to a back 5 with Tosin Adarabioyo, possibly even Adarabioyo playing a more holding midfield role, but it looks to be a back 5 for Fulham as they look to see out a point at Newcastle. Perhaps a mark of the quality difference in the teams, albeit close in table. Newcastle looking at bringing on another striker to chase the game, whereas Fulham bringing on another defender. No disrespect at all. Away from home at a big ground like St James's Park, I think a point for Fulham would be fantastic. Teams have arrived in North London. Tottenham versus Arsenal today at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Fantastic fixture. What a season Arsenal are having leading the Premier League. It looks as if the weeks tick by, they could do it. Anyway, Mitrovic has the ball. He looks to break. He's wrestled to the ground. In fact, his free kick's given the opposite way for Newcastle for the tug that he did on the Newcastle defender. But Mitrovic has stayed down, much to the displeasure of the Newcastle defender Fabian Schär, who kicks fresh air in frustration at the fact that Mitrovic has stayed down. Mitrovic bundled into Schär and then got tugged back by Trippier, but the foul had already been given in Newcastle's direction. And Mitrovic gets to his feet, albeit hobbling along. Dan Burn has the ball for Newcastle. Back to Sven Botman. Longstaff in midfield, who's had several touches today, always showed for it. Kieran Trippier now. Back to Fabian Schär. Newcastle probing along their own back four, trying to find an opening up top. Whether they'll be going long or not, trying to move the Fulham defence around to try and get some openings. Joelinton. Trippier. Good ball down inside, and it's a Newcastle free kick here for the tug back Tim Ream on Callum Wilson. Ream looks unhappy, the Fulham captain, but he is on a yellow card, and I'd keep quiet if I was you. I know he's a senior pro and probably wouldn't be giving the ref any dissent by any stretch, but he shouldn't be. He has tugged back Wilson there. It's soft, but it is a foul. Newcastle have a really encouraging free kick. It doesn't look like it's in a shooting position, more of a cross position. About 25 yards from goal, but on the right-hand side, close to the touchline. How the Gallagher end would love to see a Newcastle winner. 80 minutes on the clock here. You're listening to alternative commentary on the Commentary Hub on YouTube and all the channels. Kieran Trippier with the ball in. He whips it back post. Up goes Alexander Isak. It falls to Joelinton. Joelinton turns twice. Left-footed shot. And it takes the deflection and squirms through to Bernd Leno, who looks to be fouled by the Newcastle attacker coming in. And Callum Wilson with the knock onto him there. Bit of coming together more than anything. Joelinton turns one way, turns another, and his shot, all the power taken out of it. I mean, he'd have done well to have found the target from there with 5 Fulham defenders in front of him. Newcastle's next trip is Saturday night football, in fact. In the Premier League, they go to Crystal Palace. Crystal Palace aside with plenty of potential themselves, struggle to find that inconsistency. The likes of Zaha, Elise, of course, Odsonne Edouard, Eze. Very good players at Palace, but Patrick Vieira just can't get the tune out of them he wants. Meanwhile, they're currently playing at Stamford Bridge facing Chelsea, where it's still 1-0 Chelsea. Kai Havertz goal in 64 minutes. Which would be an important 3 points for the West London side. Dan Burn now wins a throw for Newcastle in their half. St. Maximin takes. He's found no one there, and Harrison Reed does well. He plays it over the top here. Pressure, but good defending by Sven Botman. Very strong marshalling. And it would be pretty considerable effort from Newcastle United if they were to see out this game and keep a clean sheet. It would be their 11th of the season, conceding just 11 goals in what would be 19 Premier League games. Pretty remarkable when you think of it. Alexander Isak now, Newcastle United striker. And Kenny Tete tackles Callum Wilson down on the far side there, wins a Newcastle United corner. It's a 9th corner, or 10th corner, in fact, for Newcastle. Kieran Trippier to take it on the left-hand side, whipping in with his right foot. Hasn't been able to find the quality that he usually has. He whips it in. Can this one be it? He goes long, he goes deep to Joe Linton. It's tossed up, Bernd Leno gathers, as he has done a lot this season. And in this game, on loan from Arsenal, the German goalkeeper. A very quality signing for Fulham when you think about it. Didn't do a lot wrong in an Arsenal jersey. As we're just reminded of Alexander Mitrovic's missed penalty. And again, when you watch this one back and when you listen back, guys, it's one of those ones you don't see often. Happens very rare. Struggling to remember another time when it has happened, that double contact. I can think of the Thierry Henry and Robert Pires one in 2001 or 2. But that was involving 2 players. This, again, he struck the ball onto his own standing foot. The Newcastle players knew the rule straight away. And the goal was ruled out. I have to be interested to hear our colleagues, Russ and the others at the Commentary Hub, discuss that one on the show. I'd like to get their takes on it, whether do we call that one a missed penalty, or did he score it technically because it went in? 84 minutes on the clock. You fancy now any goal's going to win this game? As Newcastle look to make another change, it's Jacob Murphy coming on. And Miguel Almiron is coming off. He won't add to his 9 goals this season. He's looked lively. Not his best game, but he's looked lively. Jacob Murphy, the former Norwich City Youth Academy product, comes on. He's featured quite a few times this season, actually, mainly off the bench for Newcastle. A couple of goals. Looked like his career was in a bit of a stop-start mode at Newcastle. Found some game time under Eddie Howe. Kieran Trippier with a free kick to Newcastle. Whips it in. It's again cleared by Fulham head. And it breaks to Fabian Schär, but there's a man down in the box, and it looks as if the ref's going to blow for that. Yes, I'm not sure if this is a head injury. João Paulina, by the looks of things. And in fact, it's Lervin Kazawa, the left back. And we'll just see now. He's run into Joe Linton's shoulder. It could be painful. Joe Linton's a big guy. It's holding the back of his head, so there'll be a gap in play, and I'm sure some minutes added on. Doesn't look in a good way here, Kazawa. Very concerning. Eddie Howe talking to his players in the meantime. So Matt Longstaff trying to get some instruction into him and Joe Linton for the last few moments. Plus injury time, of course, which I suspect will go on. And Kazawa's rolled over now. The physios are checking him. He looks to be in some bother. Be sure to head over and find the socials for us, by the way, at the Commentary Hub. If you like our coverage, we bring you coverage of all the action in the Premier League from the best and biggest games and beyond. Go over to our Twitter page at Commentary Live 1. Give us a follow. Hit the likes and subscribes, of course. Interact with us. It's always welcome. And if you head over to Facebook as well, we're on there at the Commentary Hub. That's facebook.com/the Commentary Hub. I'd like to hear from you. Kazawa's back to his feet. He's gone off, of course, as protocol. But he's back onto the field of play now. 87 minutes on the clock. 0-0 still between Newcastle and Fulham. You'd think Fulham would definitely settle for the point now. Newcastle, knowing how this season's been, with the likes of Man City slipping up recently, albeit against their neighbours. But of course, Liverpool, Chelsea struggling, Tottenham indifferent at times, Arsenal going clear. Is it a chance for Newcastle to really propel themselves up? A winner here really would add to their season. Alexander Isak plays it wide to Dan Burn, who crosses in but can only find the first man in Kenny Tete, and it goes for a Newcastle throw. Dan Burn. He finds Joe Linton. Joe Linton back to Sven Botman. Botman finds Joe Willock. And in fact, it's Alexander Isak who gets tackled. Sore one's tackled. Really firm tackle by João Paulino. Jacob Murphy retains the ball. And he finds Callum Wilson, who finds Alexander Isak. Got a man over in St. Maximum. Isak isn't interested in that, tries to find the space himself. Kieran Trippier out wide right. He has Jacob Murphy on the overlap, but he goes back to Longstaff, who whips it deep. Callum Wilson, and it's into Isak! And Newcastle have snatched it in the 88th minute. Alexander Isak, the club record signing with his third goal for Newcastle in the Premier League in just 4 games. And Newcastle have snatched it late on at St James's Park in front of the Gallowgate end. The smile on Alexander Isak's face says it all. The frustration after such a bright start for Newcastle. Scoring at Anfield, scoring against Bournemouth in the Premier League with a penalty. He'd really got some momentum off his career before his injury stopped short his Newcastle career. He's come back and he's got the winner. What an important winner it is as well. Kieran Trippier with the ball in. He cuts it back, in fact, to Longstaff, swings it back. Callum Wilson heads it against Issa Diop, and it bounces down to Wilson, who taps it across to Isak, who has an open goal, and he just nods home. It's poor from Fulham's perspective, I guess, but it's also unfortunate. It's hit Diop in the back. He knows little about it. Leno can't get there in time, and Callum Wilson just tees it up to Alexander Isak, who nods home. An open goal from literally 2 or 3 yards out. Fulham looked around possibly to VAR to help him out there, but Newcastle have snatched it late on. Surely now Fulham can't respond. Alexander Isak, the marquee signing, the guy they'd pinned so much hope on at Newcastle, delivers the goods for them at such a crucial time. Brilliant from Isak to anticipate the space, a real poacher's goal. Harrison Reed has it for Fulham. It'll be difficult for them to fashion anything. There's 5 minutes of injury time added on, but they've thrown 3 central defenders. Well, they've got 3 central defenders on. Tosin Adebayo now accompanying Tim Ream and Issa Diop at the back. But Alexander Isak will be delighted with that. That's why he's in the team, to score goals. He come off the bench with about 20 minutes to go, 15 minutes to go. And there he is to nod home. And on come the Fulham subs. Marco Silva looks to be making 3. Carlos Vinicius, the guy who scored the winner against Chelsea in the Fulham win, 2-1 win, scored the winner with a bullet header. He's coming on. Tom Kearney, former captain, and struggling to make out the last Fulham sub, but we'll bring you that in a minute. Harry Wilson is coming on. It might be too little too late. Already 1 minute into injury time. You're listening to the Commentary Hub, where Newcastle United lead 1-0. We're bringing you all the action from St James's Park today. Issa Diop comes off. They're back to a back 4 Fulham. Unfortunate for Diop, he's had a strong game, and that header that Callum Wilson had hit his back, and it just broke to Wilson, who squared it to Isak, who scored. Harrison Reed's come off. He's had a brilliant game, in fairness, for Fulham. Has been everywhere. Tom Kearney comes on for him. And Harry Wilson also coming on. Let's see who he's replacing. Bobby De Cordova-Reid. Last throw of the dice really for Marco Silva. Get some attacking bodies in there. In the time that we said there's been 1 minute of injury time, the ball's not been in play. Another minute's ticked by. Let's hope that the referee is adding that on. Robert Jones. But Marco Silva is getting a bit frustrated on the touchline. He knows that this is a little bit of time wasted, a little bit his subs. Newcastle keeping hold of the ball for a little bit longer. It's a goal kick to Fulham. Alexander Isak trying to keep it in play. The Newcastle fans look incensed. It'll be a goal kick to Fulham. Bernd Leno to take, of course. You reckon at this stage of the game he's going to have to go long. It's still 1-0 to Chelsea at Stamford Bridge, which would be a huge 3 points for Graham Potter and the pressure he's under. On the day they announced Mikhailo Mudryk from Shakhtar Donetsk for £100 million plus add-ons. Pretty eye-watering price for a player with undoubted potential, but whether or not it's £100 million worth of potential remains to be seen. Arsenal trumped in that deal. There's another break in play here in injury time. As we see the replays of Alexander Isak's wonderful goal. I say wonderful. It's wonderful if you're a striker. A poacher's finish. Otherwise, by many measures, that's a tap-in. But he won't mind. They all count. Newcastle's number 14. The Fulham bench looking really cross here. Lewis Bowen-Morte, former Fulham and Arsenal forward, in Fulham's dugout as part of the coaching team these days. He's gone over to Newcastle side of things to have a word. Shouldn't be in their dugout. Could be booked or sent off for that. Marco Silva's shaking his head. A little wry smile at his opposition. As Newcastle look to make a sub to break up the play as well. In the meantime, I think it'll be Chris Wood coming on. Bernd Leno clears the ball upfield, only as far as the Newcastle defence. And Alan St. Maximin retrieves. It's broke, and it's a Newcastle throw in the Fulham half. Exactly where Newcastle want them. It'll be Dan Burn to take it. But at the moment, I think the Newcastle fans are keen to keep the ball for themselves. Understandably so. And it gives time for Newcastle to make another change. And Callum Wilson, who's had a couple of opportunities today, he's played well, got the assist for his teammate Kai Havertz. A good game for him up front. He comes off for Chris Wood, the former Burnley man. And a key part, Chris Wood, can sometimes be criticised for perhaps not getting the most goals, but he's a big part of this Newcastle team and had a big role to play in their survival last year. Well, their momentum up the league when Eddie Howe took over. Remember, we're forgetting that they were in danger when Eddie Howe came in. Chris Wood comes onto the field. It's the last goal for Newcastle in the win at Southampton. Dan Burn has the ball and he does a long throw down the wing. It comes off of Sean Longstaff and will go for a goal kick to Fulham, which Bernd Leno tries to take quickly before Newcastle get back into place. It's gone long and high by Bernd Leno. Fulham do have the ball. You're thinking it's last chance saloon now. Kazawa. Kieran Trippier clears. It's flicked up by João Paulina. And that's going to be a throw to Newcastle. You'd think that the minutes are ticking away now. 5 minutes of injury time. We've played 6, albeit with the stoppages within injury time. Eddie Howe checking his watch. And this would be a monumental 3 points for Newcastle. It really cannot be understated how big a 3 points this would be. It'd move them back up to third in the Premier League. Longstaff to St. Maximin, gets it under control. Paulina has one opportunity to go long for Fulham. He plays it though, and Alexander Mitrovic, not at his best game today, can only find the Newcastle man. And Kenny Tete under pressure from Isak. Be a Fulham throw. Robert Jones, the referee, still keen to keep playing. He must have added some extra time on, which is fair, of course. Tim Ream now, last chance saloon for Fulham. He goes long and high. Not many Fulham players up the field, though. Mitrovic flicks it on to Harry Wilson. Was that a high foot by Dan Burn? It was, but it's the full-time whistle. And Newcastle have beaten Fulham 1-0. And a brilliant, brilliant win for Newcastle. Fulham will feel a bit hard done by, but their season won't be judged on games like this. They've had a brilliant run themselves, up to 6th in the Premier League, albeit with Brighton and Brentford on their tails. But today belongs to Newcastle, their 10th win in the Premier League in 19 games. Something special is happening on Tyneside. Mitrovic, the former Newcastle man, looks dejected. He knows it's a missed opportunity for Fulham, especially when they had some opportunities, but Newcastle held out. It wasn't the best game at St James's Park. A scrappy affair, but good teams win scrappy games. Alexander Isak with the winner for Newcastle. Coming off the bench, the club record signing. He's shown so much potential when he has played and had that frustrating injury, having arrived from Real Sociedad. A couple of goals and then got injured. But today he's come back, and he's come back with a bang for Newcastle. A brilliant goal for Alexander Isak, one that he'll love. A typical striker's goal. Callum Wilson just squaring it and nodding home, but for a striker that's been billed as Alexander Isak has, that will mean a lot to him, and that could spark a run of goal scoring for him in a Newcastle shirt. 3 goals in just 4 Premier League games for Alexander Isak. And the game, of course, will be remembered for Mitrovic's missed penalty. He thought he scored as he slipped over, but Nick Pope and all the Newcastle defenders knew that you cannot kick the ball and make 2 touches with it on your standing foot. A game with drama and a few bookings, but played in a good spirit in the end. Newcastle United have climbed up to 3rd in the Premier League. They leapfrog Manchester United. Unbeaten in 14 top-flight games, which is, I believe, a new record for Newcastle. Absolutely fantastic for them and their supporters. You sense that European football is going to be there for them at the end of the season now. 38 points. They're 5 points ahead of Tottenham, who are 5th. Tottenham, of course, about to kick off in half an hour's time in the North London derby, but against top of the league Arsenal. But back to Newcastle. They sit 3rd, Champions League, well within their grasp. They're just 1 point behind Manchester City. Live on the Commentary Hub with your alternative commentary this afternoon. I've been Joe Lever. Make sure you give us a follow on Twitter and on Facebook as well for all the latest commentary news and, of course, games that we've got coming up on the channel. It's finished. Newcastle 1, Fulham 0.